Alrighty, y'all, so I'm back this week. I appreciate you guys for tuning back in. And for those of you who've been following along with the possibility of us relocating, I finally have some official news for you guys. I know some of you have reached out in the comments and asked me, were we still looking to move? And yes, we are officially moving to Tennessee. And I flew out to meet the home inspector at the house that we're going to be closing on here very, very soon. So we found a property on a full acre. It's going to be an amazing blessing for our family, especially for our kids to have the opportunity to have the space to roam around, grow up. And this has been probably a 4-year journey, which started way back in 2020. My wife initially had the inkling to move and relocate, but at the time we had just made a really big move from Dallas Fort Worth in 2016, so the urge to move wasn't really as high for me as it was for her. But fast forward to 2022, we took that super long road trip to DFW that we documented. I know a lot of you probably watched that video, but part of the reason why we took that trip was to see if it felt right on the possibility of moving back to Texas. I know business wise it would work there, but we wanted to know if it felt right. And once we left, we both looked at each other and said the exact same thing, that if we were going to relocate, we wanted to try something different. Dallas Fort Worth is great. It's always home. It'll always be home. But we were both looking forward to doing something different. And on the way back from that trip, Holly kept bringing up Tennessee because her and her mom and sister flew out to Dollywood in 2018. And she's always been high on Tennessee ever since they went out there. But initially when she brought it up, I was like, if it's going to be Oregon or Tennessee, I would rather stay in Oregon. And so we got back to Portland, and fast forward another year in 2023, my wife finally convinced me to go out and check out Clarksville, which is right in the Nashville area. So on paper, it seemed like everything would be really good for us there. But once we got there, put boots on the ground, it's a pretty good city, but we just didn't vibe with it. And so we made it back home, and I flew back out to Tennessee in January of this year. You guys probably seen that video too. I went to visit Chattanooga. We did some research on it, and it seemed like it could be a pretty good fit for us with the mountains and hiking, because we do a ton of that in Oregon. But once I got there, I felt like the city could work, but the sourcing would be a major challenge. The Goodwill Bins there is super small, and on top of that, I think it's actually closed down now. But I would constantly have to be back and forth to Nashville, 2 hours one way. And so there's no way I'm leaving Oregon to put myself in a situation like that. And so we got back home, did some more research, and we found a property just north of Nashville, about 45 minutes to an hour out, in a small town called Portland. It's going to give us the opportunity to basically raise our kids out in the country. We always wanted the opportunity to experience some rural living for our family. Our kids are loud, they're energetic, and we want them to be able to grow up in a place where they can just be free to be them. And so we're moving to Portland, Tennessee. All right, so really with anything new and big like this that you try and put your foot forward to go forward with it, there's always pros and cons. So for us, there was really a couple of pros, and the first one is affordability. If you're watching and you're in Portland, Oregon, I know we're moving to Portland, Tennessee. Can't get away from these Portlands, right? Portland, Oregon is extremely expensive. It's probably one of the most expensive cities in America, but believe it or not, it's probably one of the least expensive cities on the West Coast. West Coast living in general is just very costly. And once we started to kind of put the numbers together in living in Oregon versus Tennessee, I quickly got on board a little bit faster than I would have otherwise, because for me as the husband, as the provider, that was one of the biggest silver linings for me. If we moved, it would be a good opportunity to expedite our financial journey. And for me personally, with the house that we have now, it's such a really nice home for us. But if you take that same home and just put it here in the Portland, Oregon metro area, just to keep it all the way real, man, it's probably unaffordable for us. And so that was one of the things that we looked at for sure. And also the weather. I've been on record here on a lot of my videos saying numerous times that the summers in Oregon are second to none. They are absolutely amazing. For the most part, if you live here, you already know. But if you're not from Oregon, you've never been to Oregon, for the most part, summers are pretty mild. It's usually in the 80s. Every now and again, the weather upticks and it gets a little bit warmer. But for the most part, it's really, really nice here in the summers. But the downside of that is once you get out of fall and head into what they call the rain season, it literally drips you to death for 7-8 months. And that's really hard on basically a work at home and a homeschooling family. So literally once the rain comes in, our kids are just indoors for such a long time. And like I was telling you guys, they're super high energy. So it's really hard on my wife, just from her mental capacity, to homeschool all the kids and then be locked indoors. There's actually, during the winter months, my wife bought this bounce house a few years ago, and we put that in our living room for the winter months, just so the kids can bounce and get some of that energy out. So the hindsight, in Tennessee, we're going to get 2 more months of summer, which, I mean, for some of you, that may not even seem like a whole lot, but coming from Oregon, that's going to be absolutely huge for us. It does rain a lot in Tennessee as well, but the difference is the downpours are just heavier, so you're not drizzled to death for all these months out of the year. And so my wife is looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that because I grew up in Dallas, Fort Worth. I mean, almost basically took the sun for granted. I mean, because there's no shortage of sun where I grew up at. And then being here, I think when we moved to Oregon, I had really high vitamin D levels. And I think the last time I did just my annual checkup, my vitamin D levels got to the point to where they're so low to where now I have to actually take vitamin D supplements just due to the lack of sunlight. So we're both looking forward to having some additional sun. It's just going to be so much better just for our family. I love Oregon. It'll always be a place I call home. I'm forever a Duck. You guys know I'm Oregon through and through, but I just think this move is going to be really good for us. But one of the cons, there's always, like I said, there's pros and there's cons, but the biggest con, and this was almost a deal breaker. My wife and I went back and forth for probably the longest time on this right here. And it's my wife's mom, so my mother-in-law. She's been absolutely crucial to our marriage. I think the reason we're still together and thriving in this season right now is because my mother-in-law, she's been a huge blessing. My wife and I, we've been able to travel without kids. We've been able to date without kids. And she's nearing retirement now, or here in the next few years. So she's not going to be able to really make any drastic moves here right away. So we're going to have to leave her behind. And we've really wrestled with this for probably the last several years, but we looked at the possibility of moving just long term and the ramifications. Long term, we do think this is the best move for our family. And once my mother-in-law gets ready to retire, she wants to maybe relocate down to the Nashville area with us, but that's not going to be right away. And so we really wrestled with that. And when we moved to Oregon in 2016 from Dallas, Fort Worth, we were basically babies as parents. We didn't really know what we were doing. We only had one kid. He was 2 years old. But we leave Oregon here this year as fully grown, mature parents. We got 5 kids now. We've been through it. We know how to parent. And so we feel like we can stand on that in the really hard times where we don't have as much support in Tennessee. And I think that'll kind of hold us through until we can kind of get down there, build a community, and maybe have my mother-in-law move, whenever that possibility comes up. But again, there's always pros and cons, and we think overall it's still going to be a really good move for us. Okay, so some of you guys have been rocking with me for almost 4 years now. You're probably like, man, so I've watched you go to the bins. I've watched you have a lot of success at a lot of stores out in Oregon. How's your sourcing life going to be impacted by that? And that's a really good question, so I'm glad you actually asked me that. So from my front door, I'm probably about 45 minutes to an hour away from the Goodwill bins in Nashville. And if you've never been to Nashville, there's actually 2 outlets there. And I've gone to both of them. I was actually just there when I met the home inspector a few weeks ago. It's definitely going to be different. I think the selections are going to be a little bit different than what I would find here in Oregon. I've become accustomed to finding a ton of outdoor brands, a ton of Nike brands, with Nike being the hub up here. That's one of the biggest things I'm going to miss the most, of just finding those brands. But I know in Nashville it will definitely work. I've gone there, and every single time that I've flown to Nashville and come back to Portland, my bag has always been overflowing. And the retail arbitrage side of things, that'll hum along just fine. I was like, again, when I was there with the home inspector, I filled up an entire bag just at one Ross, which I couldn't believe that in the middle of the day on a Saturday, there was a ton of all of these items just on clearance that no other person touched. I teased my wife. I was messaging with her, telling her there must not be any resellers working this part of town, because there's no way that somebody can come in out of town and have all these items just right here, basically at $4 or $5, $6 a piece. But anyway, I've been out usually in my sourcing here in Oregon 4 to 5 times per week. That's definitely not going to be the case once I get to Nashville. So for some rough draft thinking, I'm just kind of ballparking that I'm probably going to be in Nashville probably 2 to 3 times per week. That's probably all I'm going to be able to stomach as far as the driving. Again, it's 45 minutes to an hour one way. I'm definitely not going to want to run my car into the ground taking the same system that I had here in Oregon. And so my wife, we've been kind of juggling some ideas or bouncing some ideas back and forth with one another. So once I leave home, it'll look completely different than what I have now. Usually I'll leave my house 7:30, get to the Benz here because they open up at 8, and I'll stay out maybe 2 or 3 hours, come home before lunchtime and get to work. That won't be the case once we get to Tennessee. So on days that I source, I'll probably have to take a lunch with me because these will be sourcing days. There won't be, going are the days of leaving home and coming back in 2 hours. It's just going to be too far of a drive for that. So I'm going to have to leave and really chop wood and haul water on the days that I source. And I'm looking forward to that because it's going to give me the opportunity to be home a few days during the week, because usually I'm out all week sourcing, and that's worked really well here. But I just know I can't take that same exact model into Tennessee, because I could do it, but it just wouldn't be the work home life balance that I'm looking for. So to sum it all up, I've really enjoyed my time in the Northwest. This won't be my last time coming up here. I plan on coming up here maybe once a year to source, go to duck games. I was talking to a lot of the folks at my normal outlet. A lot of them say they're sad to see me go. I know the shoe resellers are probably saying, yeah, man, get out of here. No, I'm just joking. But anyway, Oregon hasn't seen the last of me. I'll definitely be back up here. Won't be as frequent, obviously, but I've enjoyed the time up here, and it's been great. You know, like I said, I grew up in Dallas, Fort Worth, spent the 8 years here, and I leave here very appreciative of the time that we had here as a family. And so once we get to our house in Tennessee, I do plan on keeping this channel active. At this point, it'll be 4 years of running this channel in January, and I still have a passion for video. I still like documenting the journey, and if I can just help one person along the way, that's enough for me. I think if most people are honest, when you first start your YouTube channel, you have this desire to try to grow it as big as you can get it. And after a while, that quickly fades as you realize that YouTube is a crock pot and definitely not a microwave, meaning that you're probably going to be at it for years until you really can get any real traction. I know there are some exceptions to the rule. I know there's channels that grow really fast, but for the average channel that gets started up, it's probably going to take a long time to really get rolling. And I was talking to some people about this, and you have to really give your channel, and this is crazy, somewhere between 5 to 10 years of really chopping wood and hauling water, putting out videos, and constantly trying to get better to really get traction. And so for me personally, it's not even about, if the channel grows, great, but that's not even my main driver anymore. I'm not going to be completely honest. When I first started, that was the driver, but now I love putting out videos. I love actually connecting with people on here, and the passion to do that is still there. So I don't see myself leaving anytime soon or doing that. And if I ever got to the point to where I don't think I would run this channel anymore, you guys would be the first to know. I feel like I owe it to the people that's been watching this channel for all these years to say, hey, I don't think I'm gonna post videos anymore. But I think I'm a long way away from that. So I'm looking forward to transitioning out of Oregon into Tennessee, taking you guys along with me, you guys seeing the ups and downs of basically starting a business, not necessarily from scratch, but basically rebooting in the area that I've never lived before. So I'm looking forward to just the opportunity to be able to showcase that to you guys. And as a family, we're really looking forward to this opportunity. And so just wanted to share this update with you guys. I know some of you guys have been asking me about it, and we wanted to be able to provide an update, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure I had accurate, concrete information to give you guys before I did so. So that's basically what this video is we're not sourcing, we're not doing anything like that. I just basically wanted to let you guys know we are indeed moving very, very soon, and just kind of wanted to give you guys that first-hand knowledge. So I appreciate you guys for listening And I'll catch you guys right back here on the next video.
This might be all that I know. Think it's okay. I've got a long way to grow at my own pace. Go the long way, no one taught me how to walk, but I figured it out fine.